Hearthlight Quilt Mill waits beside the slow stream, its amber windows resting on the dark water like folded squares of cloth. In this quiet part of the night that finally belongs to you, I am the night keeper. Tonight, the key fits the side door of the quilt mill, where the hearth is low, and the blankets have already been laid in neat, warm stacks. The brass key on a worn leather cord rests against my palm. It is small, smooth at the edges, and warmer than the night air, as if it has been holding a little lamplight for the walk. The lane to the mill is wide and plain, following the stream without asking anything from it. On one side, low grasses bend toward the water. On the other, an old stone wall runs under moss and ivy, each stone damp with moon-grey mist. The mill itself stands a little ahead, not tall, not grand, just settled into its place. Its wooden walls are dark with age and weather. Its roof slopes gently over the upper windows. Its water wheel turns at the side in a steady, sleepy circle, dipping and lifting, with a sound almost softer than breathing. No one is working here now. The looms are resting. The treadles are still. The wool has been gathered into baskets, and the cloth has been folded away from the edges of tables under the wheel. The stream goes on into the trees. A lantern hangs beside the side door. Its glass is amber and clouded, and the flame inside is turned down low. Under that small light, the door looks green, though the night has made every color quieter. A braid of dried lavender hangs from the lintel. Beside it is a little peg, worn smooth by years of use. The key lifts once on its cord. The lock takes it gently, without a sound that could wake the room. There is only a soft turning, the faint settling of metal, and then the door opens inward, letting out the warmth of cedar, linen, wool, and banked fire. The side entry is small enough to feel held. Its floor is made of old boards, each one polished by quiet steps, the seams darkened by years of wool dust and lamp glow. A narrow mat lies inside the threshold, woven from strips of faded fabric, cream, green, blue, a little rust red, all softened until no color tries to stand above another. On the wall to the left, wooden pegs hold folded shawls for anyone who has come in from the damp. They are plain shawls, not decorative, with gentle weight in their weave. Below them waits a bench with a cushion covered in linen. A pair of soft slippers rests beneath it, toes pointed toward the room, as though they have been waiting in a patient way. The door closes behind us with a low wooden sigh. The sound does not make a sharp line between inside and outside. It only makes the little entry feel warmer. Beyond the door, the stream continues to move. Through the boards and the wall, the water wheel can still be heard. A slow wooden turning, a hush of water. Then turning again, a small lamp stands on a shelf near the bench. Around its base are 3 spools of thread, all pale. Oat, smoke blue, and the color of warm milk. A thimble rests beside them, dull silver in the low light. A folded cloth lies under the lamp, catching the light in a square. The air is warm, but not hot. It carries the clean scent of dry wood, wool, and the faint sweetness of lavender. Somewhere deeper in the mill, a banked hearth gives off the mild glow that gave the place its name. There is nothing here to finish. The room has already finished its day. The shawls are folded, the slippers are paired. The lamp is low. The path inward is clear, and the floorboards hold the next step softly. The room can be known without effort now. The mat, the shawls, the bench, the low shelf of thread. Each one stays in its place and gives the eye somewhere simple to land. Under the wall, the stream keeps moving in a line, too soft to follow for long. It is only part of the room's warmth, carrying us onward without asking to be heard. A little more of the outside falls away here. Not sharply, not as a door closing on the world, but as damp air becoming dry and cold boards becoming warm boards. The night keeper does not hurry the pause. The room has already made a place for slow breathing. The low lamp makes no argument with the dark. It only keeps a soft edge around the things nearest it. Before the entry gives way to the wider rooms, it offers a few more to the quiet things. The wooden pegs are different heights. The wooden pegs are different heights because they were not placed for display. One peg leans a little up, one has a little upward, one a darker ring where a damp shawl must often rest, and one is empty, leaving a small oval of shadow on the wall. The shawls themselves have the weight of useful cloth. One is grey and cream in narrow stripes. One is green, with a border almost worn away. One is brown wool, folded once over the peg, so the fringe hangs in a soft line. No hand reaches for them. They are warm simply by being there. The threshold mat holds the colors of many older fabrics. Its strips have been woven flat, then softened by years of quiet steps. A blue strip passes under a green one. A cream strip disappears, then returns. A rust-colored strip runs only halfway across, as if it was enough to be part of the pattern and did not need to cross the whole mat. Near the bench, a shallow basket holds small cloth slippers for colder floors. They are paired without fuss, toes toward the room, heels toward the door. The basket casts a rounded shadow that almost touches the leg of the bench. A place like this begins by making arrival simple. There is a place for damp wool. There is a place for tired feet. There is a place for a low lamp and a folded cloth. Nothing is ceremonial. Nothing asks for attention. Nothing asks for attention. The mill only receives the night, one quiet object at a time. These small arrangements make the threshold feel easy. A worn peg, a quiet fringe, a basket shadow on the floor. Nothing needs to be explained after it has been seen. The water wheel continues beyond the wall with the same even patience, and its circle lets the entry loosen into the wider rooms ahead. Even the unevenness feels restful. The leaning peg, the half-length strip of rust cloth, the little oval shadow where nothing hangs. These are not flaws to correct. They are signs that the mill has been used kindly for many seasons and has learned to keep quiet around use. From here, the next room can arrive slowly, as if it has been waiting behind a curtain of warm air. The front weaving room opens beyond a low beam. It is wider than the entry, with 3 tall windows looking toward the stream. Their panes are a little uneven. Lamplight bends in them gently, and the dark outside becomes soft ripples of amber and blue. In the center of the room, 2 wooden looms rest side by side. They are broad and beautiful in their plainness, made from timber, rubbed smooth by time. The frames cast quiet shadows on the floor. The warp threads have been loosened for the night and covered with a light cloth, so each loom looks less like a tool and more like a sleeping shape under a blanket. a low hearth glows in the far wall. It is not a bright fire, only embers, red beneath grey ash, giving enough warmth for the room to remember the day softly. Above it, a row of small hooks holds iron tools, each one still and dark. On the mantel, there is a shallow bowl of cedar chips, a smooth river stone, and a folded square of quilted fabric no larger than a hand. The water wheel turns outside the nearest window. Its spokes pass through shadow, then catch the lamp, then pass into shadow again. No part of it hurries. The wheel seems to share the rhythm of the room. Turn, rest in turning, lift a little water, let it fall. Near the looms, baskets of wool sit on the floor, cream wool in one basket, grey in another. A third holds small rolls of dyed cloth, muted green, brown, and soft blue, all tied loosely with cotton string. We cross the room by the edge, where the floorboards are widest. The looms stay quiet. The hearth stays low. The wheel keeps moving, turning the night itself into something softer. The room settles around its own plain shapes. Hearth, loom, basket, window, each one gives back less than it receives, until looking becomes almost the same as resting. Cedar and folded cotton stay in the air, mild and dry. They are enough to lead the next step without turning it into a task. The night keeper stays near the wall, leaving the center of the room to the resting looms. A sleeping tool deserves space. In the low amber and blue from the windows, the frames look steady, enough to hold the whole room while the stream continues under the night. Nothing in the room points forward, yet the open floor by the wall quietly shows where to go. The covered looms have their own calm presence. Their beams are thick and dark, but the cloth laid over them makes their weight feel mild. The covers are plain linen, not perfectly white, with tiny slubs in the weave, and one mended place near the corner. The cloth rises over the frame, dips where the warp has been loosened, and falls again in a long, untroubled line. Below, the treadles rest in a row like quiet steps. Each has a smooth hollow, where many feet once found the same place, but tonight they do not move. Dust, they do not move. Dust has not gathered heavily. The room has been swept, and the small scraps have been collected into a willow basket. Yet, the floor still keeps the soft powder of wool and wood. A day remembered, without work, continuing into night. A shuttle lies in a shallow tray on the nearest bench. It is wrapped in a strip of pale cloth, not hidden, only kept from knocking against the tray. Beside it, a bobbin of cream thread sits on its side. The thread end has been tucked under itself, so even the loose end has found a place to rest. Through the windows, the water wheel keeps its uncounted rhythm. The room does not measure it. The loom, nooms, does not answer it. The covered cloth simply holds the shape beneath, and the shape beneath holds still. This is how the mill lets work become rest. Nothing is abandoned. Nothing is displayed as unfinished. The useful things have been covered, set down, folded, or tucked into place, and the night is allowed to pass over them without asking for more. After a moment, the covered frames become easy to leave alone. Their linen covers hold the day's work without displaying it, and the softened treadles keep their quiet row. The wool in the baskets waits nearby, pale and rounded. It gives the room a slower breath as the path moves on. The cloth cover makes a small hillside over each loom, rising and falling without drama. It is easy to imagine morning, finding everything exactly here, but morning is far away and has no claim on this hour. For now, the linen keeps the work asleep. The night keeper leaves the shuttle wrapped, the bobbins still, and the covered frames exactly as they are. Along the right-hand wall, shelves hold thread spools in rows. They are arranged by shade, though not too carefully. The colors move from cream to flax, from flax to pale gold, from pale gold to green, then gray, then the blue of the stream after moonrise. Some spools are nearly full, some are hollow at the center where the thread has been used. All of them sit in the same patient hush. A lamp with a green glass shade leans over the shelf. Its light makes a little pool that touches only the first few rows, leaving the rest in a comfortable dusk. The wooden ends of the spools glow where the light reaches them. Beyond that, they become round shadows, small and orderly, disappearing into the calm of the room. On the work table beneath the shelves lies a strip of patchwork. It is unfinished in the ordinary way, calm on the table, asking for no hands tonight. The squares are already joined in part: linen, wool, cotton, old shirt cloth, the softened corner of a blanket, one piece with a faded leaf pattern, nearly worn away. The needle has been tucked safely into a small cushion shaped like a pear. A length of thread rests across the table in a loose curve. The mill has kept every small thing from becoming lost. The buttons are in a dish. The needles are in their cloth. The scissors are closed. The measuring ribbon is rolled. Beginnings have a place here. Pauses have a place. Work can be left for another time and still be safe. We do not pick it up. We only notice the care that is already present. The lamp hums faintly. The table holds its cloth. The spools hold their color. The water wheel turns outside the wall, patient as a slow thought, drifting farther and farther from waking. The colors do not need naming twice. They sit in their rows until cream, flax, green, gray, and blue become one low band of lamplight. The glass shade keeps its small glow over the table, and that glow is enough to carry the eye toward the cloth laid out below. Some spools have one loose fiber lifted at the edge, a hair-thin line, catching greenish light, before falling back into shadow. The shelf does not become busy because of it. It only becomes more human, more gently used, and easier to leave in peace. Under that patient shade, even the unfinished strip of patchwork feels safely folded into the room. The patchwork table is broad enough for a whole quilt, yet tonight it holds only a few patient pieces. The surface is worn pale where hands have smoothed cloth for many years. Near one corner, shallow scratches cross each other like paths in frost, but the lamp softens them until they are only texture. A wooden tray sits at the table's center. Inside, it are small things arranged for quiet usefulness: closed scissors with dark handles, a measuring ribbon rolled into a loose circle, a dish of bone, buttons, a few short lengths of thread, laid together by color. There is no label to read, no list to finish, no decision waiting. The objects have already found their resting places. The strip of patchwork begins with a cream square, then green, then blue-gray, then a narrow piece of old brown wool. The seams are not perfectly straight, which makes them easier to look at. They have the calm of work done by time rather than hurry. One square has a mended corner. Another has a tiny, faded flower that is almost gone. The needle cushion, shaped like a pear, sits beside the strip, plump and still. The needle has been pushed all the way in except for one dull silver end. It cannot catch on anything. It cannot call anyone back to work. Even the needle is resting. The key brushes softly against the table edge as we pass, wrapped by the leather cord, so the sound is only a small, warm tap. It does not open anything here. It only reminds the room of the door already opened, then grows still again. The table remains complete because it has been paused with care. A tray, a pear-shaped cushion, a softened seam. Each detail stays low and useful. Hearthlight lies along the floorboards in a thin amber wash, and the room releases us as quietly as the key's small tap fades. The strip of patchwork seems almost to breathe with the room, though of course it is still. Its colors have the quiet of things saved from elsewhere and welcomed here. Nothing is new enough to startle. Nothing is old in a lonely way. It all belongs. The table keeps its small pause, and the pause is enough to make the next doorway feel near. Past the weaving room, the first quilt room waits. It is long and low, with cedar shelves built from floor to ceiling. On each shelf, folded quilts rest in clean stacks, their edges facing outward like quiet pages in a book. Some are made of small squares. Some are made of small squares, each one a different, faded cloth. Some are long stripes, muted and simple. Some have only two colors, cream and gray, or green and brown, meeting again and again in steady lines. None of them are displayed as precious things. They are kept as useful warmth, ready for a cool room, a hard bench, or a bed that asks for one more layer. The smell here is cedar and cotton. It is dry, warm, and deep. Small sachets hang from the shelves, filled with lavender and rosemary. Though the herbs are faint now, closer to memory than perfume, a ladder on wheels rests against the far wall, its steps wide and smooth. A folded linen cloth has been laid over its top rung. A chair sits under the window. A quilt lies over its back, halfway unfolded, but not carelessly. It looks as if someone began to air it there and then found the position so peaceful that nothing more was needed. The window above the chair is opened only a finger width. Through it comes the stream, the wheel, and a thread of cool night air, just enough to move the edge of the quilt once, then let it settle. Here, the brass key rests for a while on the leather cord against the shelf peg beside my hand. It catches one small line of lamplight and then grows dull again, as if it too understands how little brightness is needed. The quilts do not rustle. The shelves do not creak. The whole room seems folded with them. Layer over layer, quiet over quiet, warmth waiting where it can be found. The shelves begin to feel less like storage and more like weather held indoors. Cedar, cotton, lavender, a little cool air from the window. All of it stays gentle. The stream under the wall keeps its dark ribbon of sound, and the folded stacks let the route continue without a single chosen quilt. A folded quilt can make a room feel inhabited without showing a single person. The chair by the window, the ladder, the sachets, the shelves all suggest care that has already happened and does not need to appear. The night keeper only lets that care remain visible. The open window moves, only the quilt edge, then lets the long room grow still again. The ladder on wheels stands, still, against the high shelves. Its rails are cedar, like the shelves, but darker where hands have held them. The wheels are small and iron-rimmed, set into a track along the floor, along the floor. Tonight, they do not need to roll. They only wait at the place where the upper shelves begin. A folded linen cloth lies over the top rung. It has been placed there to keep the rung from marking a quilt, or perhaps because someone wanted a clean place for the hand. The reason does not matter now. The cloth makes the ladder feel less like a tool and more like another folded thing in the room. Above eye level, the shelves hold quilts wrapped in muslin. The muslin is tied with cotton tape, not tightly, just enough to keep the folds together. Some bundles have small knots of colored thread at one corner. Green for garden quilts, blue for window quilts, cream for window quilts, cream for winter bed quilts. The colors are not instructions tonight. They are tiny restful marks in the dusk. The lower shelves are easier to see. One quilt has a border of little squares, each square turned in a slightly different direction. Another is made of long, calm strips, grey and oat and river blue. Another has a flannel back, visible where the fold opens at the edge. The room is a library of warmth, but there is nothing to read. The stacks are known by touch and by season. They can remain unread, unchosen, and still complete. The ladder rests against them, as if holding the upper quiet in place. The upper shelves can remain untouched. Their muslin bundles and small knots of thread are visible enough, then softly less visible, which is a comfort of its own. The wheel keeps its even circle outside, uncounted and unclaimed, while the ladder holds the high quiet in place. The small wheels in the floor track make no sound, but their iron rims hold a dull memory of movement. The ladder will be useful again someday, in daylight, for upper bundles and clean cloth. Tonight its usefulness is simply to wait without impatience. Above it, the wrapped quilts keep their seasons quietly, each bundle softened by muslin and cedar. The next room feels rounder, though its corners are square. Baskets fill it from wall to wall, each one wide and shallow, woven from pale willow. The wool inside them is clean and loose, gathered into soft clouds. Cream, grey, brown, and the faint blue-white of fog before morning. A single lamp hangs from a beam, wrapped in a shade of thin linen. It turns the wool into gentle mounds of light and shadow. The baskets closest to the lamp glow at the edges. The baskets farther away fade into the restful brown of the walls. There is a table here, lower than the others, with carding combs set aside beneath a cloth. No sharp gleam shows, and no unfinished task stands in the center of the room. The tools are covered, the floor is swept, and the wool has been left to hold its own softness through the night. A small rocking chair sits near the back wall. It is still. Over one arm is a narrow blanket, ribbed and plain, the kind that keeps knees warm without weighing them down. Beside the chair, on a little stool, is a mug with a lid over it, perhaps warm water, with a sprig of mint, perhaps only the memory of steam. The room has a sound of its own, not silence exactly, more like the sound made when many soft things are resting together. The stream is quieter here. The wheel is muffled. The building seems padded from the inside. A few loose fibers drift in the lamplight. They do not rise far. They simply turn, settle, and disappear against the baskets. This room asks for nothing more than slower breathing. Round shapes for the eyes. The thought of softness for the hands. Another layer for the night, and then another. Here the eye stops, trying to separate every basket. Cream, grey, brown, and blue-white gather into one softened field. The wool keeps its roundness in the lamplight, light enough to look at, and heavy enough to steady the room before the path turns again. The rocking chair stays empty beside the baskets, and that emptiness is gentle. It is a place where a body could rest, but no place where a body nepit. No body is required for the room to feel complete. The wool itself gives enough softness for the eye to settle. The lampshade trembles almost not at all, and the baskets accept that tiny movement without changing. The low table in the wool room has been covered with a square of unbleached cloth. Its corners are weighted by smooth river stones, one at each side. So, the cover lies flat without being pulled tight. Under the cloth, the shape of the carding comes is only suggested. A small rise here, a longer shadow there, all softened until the tools become part of the table's quiet. Beside the cover is a shallow bowl of cleaned wool locks. They curl in loose shapes, some like little commas, some like small pale leaves. The wool has no task tonight. It does not need to be drawn, spun, or sorted. It is only softness gathered into a bowl. A wooden stool waits near the table. Its seat is round and worn at the center. One leg has been repaired with a darker piece of wood, smooth and honest in the lamplight. The repair does not draw the eye for long. It simply belongs with all the other useful things that have lasted, because someone cared for them without making a story out of the care. The lamp above the table is wrapped in linen. When a thread of air moves through the room, the shade barely stirs. The light shifts over the wool, then settles again. Nothing swings wide, nothing flickers hard. The mill keeps even its smallest movements low. From this room, the water wheel is almost only a memory. Its rhythm has traveled through walls, baskets, wool, and warm air until it becomes a slow pulse in the wood. The table rests within that pulse, covered and complete. The covered tools make the table kind. Nothing bright waits to catch the eye, and nothing unfinished leans forward from beneath the cloth. Old glass holds the lamp's glow in a small, patient pool, just wide enough for the baskets and the covered combs to rest inside it. Beneath the cloth, the combs are understood rather than seen. That is enough. The room does not need to prove its work. It only needs to keep every sharp thing safely covered, every useful thing near at hand, and every soft mound undisturbed until morning. Around the table, the floor remains swept and matte, holding only a fine memory of wool. A narrow passage leads to the window bench beside the water wheel. Hooks line the passage, and from them hang cloth bags filled with scraps too small for quilts, but too loved to throw away. There are corners of shirts, torn apron hems, edges of old pillowcases, strips of faded curtain, and small triangles of wool waiting for some future patchwork. At the end of the passage, the room opens to a broad window built close to the wheel. The bench beneath it is deep, almost like a small bed. A cushion covers the seat, and 3 folded blankets rest at one end. The wood around the window is darker from years of damp air, but it has been oiled until it shines softly. Outside, the wheel turns very near. It fills the glass gently, a slow companion to the room. Water gathers on the paddles, lifts, spills, and returns. The sound is rounded by the wall and window. Wood, wood, water. Wood, water. A pattern with no edge. The stream moves under the wheel and beyond it, carrying the reflected windows into the trees. Sometimes the reflection breaks into amber pieces, sometimes are pieces. Sometimes it joins again into one long bar of light. On the bench, the blankets smell faintly of sun, though the night is deep. One is thick wool with a woven border. One is linen-backed and cool to the touch. One is quilted in small, uneven squares, each square a different shade of worn blue. We do not need to sit anywhere in particular. The story simply pauses here. The wheel turns. The stream answers. The bench holds its blankets. The mill seems to rock without moving, like a warm boat tied safely to the shore of sleep. It is enough to sit beside the wheel without watching it carefully. The bench, the cushion, the cool pane, the stream beyond. Each one arrives and then softens. Hearthlight reaches this far, reaches this only as a mellow color on the boards, and the wheel carries the rest. The cushion has kept the faint curve of earlier sitting, softened now into almost no shape at all. From here, the wheel is close enough to hear in detail, then too soft to follow, then close again. The bench accepts each change without moving. The night keeper gives the wheel no count, and the room becomes calmer for not counting. The glass beside the wheel is old enough to bend the reflection. A spoke passes across it, and the spoke becomes wider near the middle, thinner at the edge, then softens into the dark again. The amber windows from the mill appear on the water outside, then return through the glass as wavering bars on the ceiling. The bench is placed exactly where the sound is most even. Not loud, not distant, near enough to give shape to the room, far enough to become part of the air. The wheel lifts water, lets water fall, and the wall receives the sound the way wool receives light. At the corner of the bench, a small shelf holds a candle lantern with no open flame, only a low enclosed light. Beside it is a folded hand towel, a round stone, and a little dish of dried lavender heads. The dish is shallow, blue-grey ceramic with a glaze that catches one dim line from the window. The key lies still against my palm for a moment as the wheel turns outside. It does not turn a lock here. It only warms slowly in the room, taking in the same amber that touches the blankets and the glass. The reflections on the ceiling are never the same twice, yet they never surprise. They lengthen, break, and join again, like strips of cloth being laid side by side. If the eye follows them, it can follow for a while. If the eye lets them go, they continue without needing to be watched. The glass keeps the wheel at a distance. Amber breaks across the pane, joins again, then breaks once more, all too slowly, to become a pattern that needs solving. The scarce stream under the wall goes on beneath it, and the room feels content to be half window, half warmth. The pane makes the water look slower than it is. Ripples that would be quick outside arrive here, as softened bands bent by old glass and lamplight. The night keeper lets them pass over the room without naming each one, the way sleep lets thoughts pass. The old poem holds the outside gently, making water and window part of the same quiet surface. Beyond the bench room, a mending table stands under a low window. It is a broad table scarred in shallow lines from years of careful use. Tonight, it has been cleared down to a small wooden tray, a folded lamp cloth, and 3 quilt squares laid side by side. The first square is made from old flannel, pale and almost white. The second is a piece of green wool with one faded line, where it must have once been folded for a long time. The third is cotton printed with tiny leaves, the pattern softened until it feels more like a memory of leaves than a drawing. A little drawer is open only enough to show what rests inside. Thread cards, bone buttons, a seam ripper tucked into cloth, a packet of needles, a pencil worn short. Everything in the drawer is calm. Nothing spills over, nothing calls for attention. As I pass, the brass key touches the drawer pull, making the smallest muted sound, not a ring, only a tap wrapped in leather and wood. The drawer stays as it is. The key stays with me. The table keeps its 3 squares in the lamplight. Above the window, a narrow shelf holds smooth stones from the stream. Each stone has been washed and dried, then left there for no reason except that it was pleasant to keep. One is dark grey with a white line through it. One is flat and brown. One is nearly round, the size of a plum. Tonight the mending room is not for repair. It is for letting things rest before they are finished. Cloth can wait. Thread can wait. A drawer may stay open a finger width and still be peaceful. The table has given its work to morning, and the night has accepted it. The mending table holds patience better than any instruction could. 3 squares of cloth, a closed drawer, a ribbon end, a needle tucked away. The whole surface says that work may wait. The wheel turns outside with its low circle, and the waiting becomes part of the room. There is comfort in a table that has stopped exactly where it should. Not finished, not neglected, only paused. The cloth squares keep their corners. The thread waits near the needle. The drawer remains open by a finger width, as if the room is breathing through it. The brass key hangs near the table edge, present but still. A small warm weight in the room. The shallow drawer keeps a small order of its own. The buttons rest in a little tray divided into 4 low squares. Cream buttons in one square, smoke grey buttons in another, wooden buttons in the third, and 1 pale green button by itself in the last. It has no match nearby, but it is not lonely. It has simply been kept. Thread cards lie beside the tray, each wound with a useful length. The colors are modest: linen, moss, oat, soft brown, a blue that looks like the stream when moonlight is thin. The cards have no readable labels. They are recognized by touch, shade, and habit. The pencil is worn short enough to fit crosswise at the back of the drawer. Its point has been dulled, so it cannot mark anything unless morning asks it to. A packet of needles is wrapped in cloth and tied once with thread. Even the packet looks as if it is sleeping. On the shelf above, the stream stones hold the cool part of the room. Their surfaces are matte where they dried, except for 1 smooth line on the dark stone that catches the lamp. The stones do not decorate the table, they steady it. They remind the room that the stream outside is still moving. Even here among drawers and cloth, the mending table does not ask for a story of what was torn or where each button came from. It offers only the settled result. Small things kept, useful things covered, unfinished things safe until another day. The quiet here has many compartments, and every compartment is easy to close. The buttons keep their small round quiet: bone, shell, dark wood, pale thread. Nothing shines enough to wake the drawer. Cedar and folded cotton remain in the next room's air, and the shallow tray lets the story move on without choosing a single one. A button drawer can hold many small histories without asking for any of them to be told. One button may have come from a cuff, one from a coat, one from a child's blanket long ago. Tonight, they are only circles in a shallow tray. When the drawer is left as it is, the mending table feels trusted rather than forgotten. The hearth nook sits in the heart of the mill, tucked behind the weaving room, where warmth gathers and stays. The ceiling is low here, crossed by dark beams. The walls are stone around the hearth and wood everywhere else. So the room feels both grounded and softly held. The fire has become embers. Their light moves slowly under ash, red to orange, orange to a darker glow, then red again when one small coal settles. A kettle rests on the side hook, but it is not boiling. It only keeps a little warmth in its metal. Beside the hearth, a stack of split wood waits in a cradle, each piece placed with its cut side facing out. There is a rug on the floor, woven from strips of cloth too narrow for blankets. Its colors have blurred with use: blue, brown, cream, a line of gold, then blue again. A round cushion lies near the rug, and beside it is a low table with a covered mug, a folded napkin, and a single oat biscuit resting on a plate. No hunger is required. The objects are here because this is the kind of room that prepares for comfort, even when comfort needs very little. On the mantel, a small lamp stands between two jars of dried herbs. The lamp flame is turned so low that it seems to be listening to the embers. Their lights meet on the stone and become one soft color. From here, the mill sounds lower and deeper. The wheel is farther away. The stream is a lower murmur. The shelves and looms are behind us now, each room held in its own pocket of warmth. The hearth gives no instructions. It only keeps. It keeps the boards from cooling too fast, keeps the kettle too fast, keeps the kettle mildly warm, and keeps a glow for the rooms that have finished their day. The hearth nook gives warmth without making a scene of it. The kettle, the covered mug, the biscuit, the strip rug, all of them stay close to the embers and almost still. The wool resting in wide baskets lingers behind us, and the mill feels warmer for remembering it. The covered mug keeps its warmth private. The biscuit does not crumble. The kettle does not sing. All the usual signs of use have quieted into presence, and the hearth asks for nothing more than to glow low against the stones. The strip rug points nowhere urgent. It only keeps the feet near, warmth and away from cold boards. The kettle in the hearth nook is dark with long use, rounded at the belly and faintly bright along the handle. It gives no steam now. It only keeps the memory of warmth. If it made a sound earlier, that sound has already passed into the room and become part of the walls. The wood cradle beside the hearth is filled but not crowded. Each split piece has a pale cut face and a darker bark edge. A few curled shavings rest at the bottom of the cradle, left from kindling prepared before night settled. They are dry, featherlight, and still. The rug near the fire is made from strips too narrow for other work. Here, the narrow pieces have become useful together. Blue follows brown, Cream follows grey. A line of gold appears, disappears under the cushion, and returns at the far edge. The pattern is not meant to be studied. It is meant to be underfoot, softening the room, one step at a time. On the low table, the covered mug sits beside the folded napkin. The cover is a small saucer turned upside down. Its rim catches a small crescent of hearthlight. The oat biscuit on the plate is plain, round, and untouched, as if it belongs to the room more than to hunger. The hearth nook understands small provisions. A little warmth, a little water, a little food, if food is wanted, a place to sit if sitting helps. And if nothing is wanted, the room remains complete, content to hold its embers until they settle lower. The rug keeps the hearth from feeling formal. Its strips cross and return, cloth from older cloth, softened into a path for bare feet. The old glass lamp keeps a mild glow near the kettle, and the room grows simple enough to leave by its own quiet. A strip rug is a patient kind of patchwork. Each old ribbon of cloth has been given a second softness underfoot. The colors cross near the hearth and disappear into the room's dim edge, making the floor feel warm even where the firelight thins. Near the rug, the shadows from the kettle and stool lie down in short, familiar shapes. The dye room is cooler and still gentle. Its door is propped open with a smooth brick wrapped in cloth. Inside, the long tables have been washed, and the shallow bowls are turned upside down to dry. No strong colors rise from them now. Only the faintest trace remains. Blue in one bowl, leaf green in another, a warm brown at the rim of a third. Bundles of undiyed cloth hang from a rail near the ceiling. They are dry, pale, and still. Under them, jars stand in a row along the wall, each covered with linen and tied with string. The labels have been turned toward the wall, so no words need to be read. The room is all shape and shade: jar, bowl, rail, cloth, table, floor. A small window looks out toward the back garden, where moonlight touches the tops of woolly herbs and the flat stones of a path. The garden does not need visiting yet. It is simply there, silver and muted, giving the room one cool square of quiet. On one table, a length of cloth has been folded while still holding a pale blue shadow. It may become part of a quilt one day, or it may stay folded for a long while. The story leaves it undecided. The air has a clean mineral scent, softened by wood and linen. The floor is stone here, and each step sounds a little more rounded than the last, as if the room has learned to absorb even footsteps. The dye room has let go of brightness for the night. Its colors sleep in jars. Its cloth rests on rails. Its bowls dry upside down. The moon in the garden window makes every pale thing paler, until the room feels like a long, slow exhale. The dye room has already put its color to sleep. Bowls turned over, jars stoppered, cloths drying in softened rows. Every bright thing has been given a darker edge. Hearthlight reaches the doorway in a low line, and the moonlight takes the rest. The room has color, but no color rises too high. Madder, moss, blue, pale linen. Each one has been lowered by moonlight until it can rest beside the others. The air smells faintly of rinsed cloth, dry wood, and the cool garden beyond the door. The night keeper keeps to the passage edge, letting the resting cloth and bowls hold the room. The cloth on the rail hangs in long, quiet folds. Some pieces are narrow, meant for borders or ties. Some are wide enough to become the back of a quilt. A few are rolled over the rail and fall on both sides, making soft twin shapes in the lamplight. The bowls below them are turned upside down, each lifted slightly by the rim so air can pass underneath. Their outer surfaces are plain clay, but a faint color gathers at the foot of each bowl. Blue, green, brown, and one pale gold that is almost the color of dry straw. The colors do not glow. They rest. Along the wall, the linen-covered jars sit with their tied strings. One string is darker than the others. One has a tiny loose fiber hanging from the knot. One jar is shorter and wider, with its cloth cover dipping slightly in the middle. None of this needs correcting. The dye room is neat enough for sleep, and sleep does not require perfect lines. The folded blue shadow cloth on the table has a coolness that seems to come from moonlight rather than dye. Its fold is broad and calm. The edge has been pressed by hand, not sharply, just enough to remember where it wants to lie. A small draft comes from the garden window and moves through the pale cloth only once. The motion is so slight that it is nearly imagined. Then the rail is still again. Pale cloth above, quiet bowls below, jars along the wall, and the stone floor holding the cool part of the mill. The cloth on the rail barely moves. It holds its pale folds, as if even air has become careful here. Cedar and cotton remain faintly behind us, while the dye room keeps only the quietest version of color for the garden door ahead. The rail casts a thin shadow on the wall, and the cloth's lower edge keeps that shadow company. Nothing drips. Nothing stains the floor. The dye room has finished all its bright work for the day, and now practices the quieter work of keeping still. A little moonlight stays on the rail, thin as thread and just as easy to leave. A small door opens from the dye room into the back garden. It is not the door we entered by. This one is shorter, with a wooden latch and a window no larger than a hand. The latch lifts easily, and the garden air comes in cool, damp, and kind. The garden is enclosed by the mill on one side and a low wall on the other. It is not a formal garden, only a useful little patch of night. Herbs, moss, flat stones, a trough of rainwater, and a bench under a pear tree. The pear tree is old and bent, its leaves dark against the sky. The stones make a simple path from the door to the bench. They are set wide apart, with thyme and tiny leaves growing in the spaces. The stones are cool, but the warmth of the mill stays at our backs, so the coolness does not feel lonely. It feels like one more texture in the same blanket. From here, the water wheel is partly veiled by the corner of the building. One quiet edge of it appears, moving slowly through moonlight. The stream is closer than it seemed inside, slipping past the wall with a murmur that has no beginning and no end. On the bench lies a folded quilt meant for outdoor air. It is thicker than the others, with a dark green backing and a border stitched in simple lines. A lantern hangs from the pear tree above it, a lan enough to make the bench above it, low enough to make the bench visible, high enough to leave most of the garden in blue shade. We stay only a little while. The garden has already given what it has. Cool stone, quiet leaves, the stream beyond the wall, and the gentle thought that every door here opens only into more calm. The garden is not a place to explore to. Tonight, it offers stones, pear leaves, a trough of dark water, and then lets them be enough. The stream under the wall keeps close to the mill, and its sound makes the outside feel held rather than open. The pear tree does not become a character in the dark. It is only a patient shape above the stones, with a few leaves turned silver at the edges. The garden gives the mill one cool breath, then lets the door and lamplight gather us back. The stones do not lead into the dark. They only make a small place beside the door. The rainwater trough sits near the garden waterfall, low and rectangular, made of stone that has softened at the edges. Its water is dark enough to hold the pear tree upside down. A few leaves rest on the surface, not drifting much, only turning by the smallest amount when the air moves. Moss grows along the lower side of the trough, thick and green in the lantern's reach. At the base, time has crept between two stones and made a little mat of leaves. The garden smells of damp earth, herbs, linen, and the warm wood of the mill behind us. The outdoor quilt on the bench has been folded with the darker backing outward. Its stitched border is visible only at one corner, where the fold has opened enough to show 3 lines of thread. The quilt belongs here as naturally as the trough and the stones. It is not meant for display. It is meant for one cool hour when an extra layer might be kind. Through the small garden door, the dye room glows pale behind us. Through the narrow space between the mill and wall, the stream glows darker than the sky. The wheel turns where it always turns, partly hidden, partly visible, never becoming the center of the garden and never leaving it entirely. No path leads away from here. The garden is a small pocket attached to the mill, and its stillness has edges. The door behind, the wall beside, the pear tree above, the stones below. All of it gives the night an easy shape to rest inside. The trough keeps the sky in a shallow stillness. A leaf rests on the surface. The stones around it stay cool and uneven. The wheel makes its circle beyond the garden wall, and the water there and the water here seem to answer without hurry. The rainwater does not reflect the whole sky, only a softened piece of it. That is enough for this corner of the garden. The trough, the leaf, the stones, and the wall make a small outdoor room, no wider than a quiet thought. The garden listens to the wheel from outside, while the mill keeps its warmth close behind us. When the garden has given its coolness, the small door closes again. The latch lowers without a hard sound. The garden remains visible through the hand-sized pane for a moment. Pear leaves, lantern, trough, the edge of the folded outdoor quilt. Then the dye room becomes the nearer place again. The cool air follows only a little way inside. It touches the stone floor, the legs of the table, from any cloth, the lower edges of the hanging cloth, and then it thins into the warmer air of the mill. The moon square on the floor is dimmer now, or perhaps the eyes have become used to it. Nothing in the dye room has changed while we were outside. The bowls are still upside down. The jars still turn their covered faces to the wall. The blue shadow cloth still rests on the table. This unchanged quality is part of the comfort. The mind can return and find the room exactly where it left it. A single drop of water slides from a leaf outside and touches the sill. The sound is small enough to belong to the window rather than to weather. After it, the room is quiet again. The path now turns inward toward warmer boards and lower light. The garden has not been left behind in a dramatic way. It has simply been folded into the root, like a green square placed among cream and brown pieces, ready to appear again when the quilt of the night is remembered. The returning through the dye room, nothing needs to be inspected again. The bowls are still turned down. The rail is still pale. The garden door is still closed behind us. Wool waits in memory as softly as it waits in baskets, and the inner rooms receive the path back. It is good to pass a room the second time and need less from it. The eye recognizes the rail, the jars, the covered bowls, and lets them stay vague. Familiarity does not sharpen the place. It makes it kinder and easier to leave. The return has no new discovery in it, only the relief of finding everything unchanged. Inside again, the stair to the attic store begins behind a curtain of heavy linen. The curtain hangs from wooden rings and moves with a soft sound when it is drawn aside. Behind it, the stair rises in a narrow turn, each step shallow, each edge worn smooth. A lamp sits in a niche halfway up. Its glass is amber, and its flame is small enough that the stair remains dim at the corners. The handrail is warm from the rooms below. It follows the wall in one steady line, polished by years of slow hands. The brass key settles against my chest as we climb, light. On its leather cord, no longer needed for the outer lock, and still part of the path. Once, it brushes the rail and gives a muted little sound. Then it grows still again. At the top of the stair, the ceiling lowers. The attic door is already open. Beyond it, the storeroom glows with the kind of light that seems to come from cloth itself. Shelves run under the sloping roof. Baskets sit between beams. Rolled blankets rest in long cubbies, their ends round and soft in the lamp glow. The attic smells of cedar, dry lavender, old cotton, and the faint, pleasant dust of a place that is kept carefully, but not polished too bright. The floorboards are wide, and a narrow rug leads inward, muting each step. Below us, the mill is quieter now. The wheel is a distant hush. The hearth is a dull warmth under the floor. The rooms we pass through seem to fold themselves closed, one after another. Not locked, just settled. The attic waits with its blankets. Nothing up here is forgotten. Nothing up here is forgotten. Everything is resting until it is needed. The stair belongs to the quieter half of the mill. Its handrail is warm, where many hands have trusted it, and the linen curtain waits without stirring. The old glass lamp near the landing keeps just enough glow for the first step upward. The stair does not climb steeply. It turns just enough to hide the attic until the last moment, which makes the upward path feel private and mild. Each step has a worn center, a small hollow made by many quiet returns. The brass key is quiet against the cord as the first attic shadow gathers above the curtain. The attic store holds the warmest quiet in the mill. Not the warmest air, perhaps, but the quiet with the most layers. The sloped roof comes down low over cedar shelves, and every shelf is full without feeling crowded. There are winter quilts wrapped in muslin, summer coverlets tied with ribbon, rolled mats for window benches, small pillows in plain linen cases, bundles of cloth labeled only by color, with little knots of thread tied around them. Cream, moss, smoke, wheat, river blue. A round window sits at the far end of the attic. Through it, the night looks almost still. A few branches from the pear tree move beyond the glass. Farther away, The stream catches moonlight in thin pieces. The wheel cannot be seen from here. Cannot be seen from here, but it can be felt in the building. A slow turning below the floor, a rhythm carried through beams and boards. On a low chest, beneath the window, lies a quilt, different from the others. It is not brighter, only more varied. Its squares are made from many rooms of the mill. A strip like the entry mat. A piece like the shawls near the door. A square of blue like the cloth on the dye table. A muted green like the garden quilt. A small cream piece like the wool basket room. It is the mill gathered into one soft surface. A small lamp stands beside it. The lamplight rests on the quilt without asking it to shine. The chest is closed. The shelves are full. The roof beams hold their shadows. This is a room for storing warmth until warmth is needed. Tonight, it gives that warmth back to the air slowly without measure. Under the roof, the shelves hold a slower kind of order. Wrapped quilts, pillows, folded sacks, cedar blocks. Nothing presses forward from the dusk. Hearthlight is only a memory in the boards below, but the stored cotton keeps a mild warmth of its own. The sloped roof presses the room into a gentler shape. No tall ceiling asks the gaze to rise too far. Everything is brought down toward shelves, folded bundles, and the warm scent of cedar, so the attic feels tucked in rather than high above. Every stored thing seems to know it has been kept, and that knowledge makes the roof space calm. The quilt on the chest is folded twice, but one corner has fallen open. Inside that corner, the stitching can be seen, small, even, and unhurried. The thread is not perfectly straight. It moves the way a hand moves when it is calm, following the cloth, making small adjustments, accepting each square as it is. There is a patch from something, once worn thin at the elbow. There is a patch from a curtain that must have held morning light for many years. There is a patch from a blanket, softer than the rest. There is a patch with 3 tiny flowers, so faded they are almost only dots. The quilt does not tell a story brightly. It does not need names or dates. It simply holds use, washing, folding, warmth, and time. Every piece has already belonged somewhere. Now each one belongs here too. A cedar drawer beneath the chest is open a little. Inside are sachets, spare buttons, and a roll of ribbon the color of oats. The ribbon has come loose at one end and rests against the drawer lip in a curl. Nothing needs correcting. The loose curl can stay. The open quilt corner can stay. The attic keeps its small imperfections because they are part of its rest. When a house or a mill or a room becomes ready for sleep, it does not become perfectly arranged. It becomes kind enough to stop asking for arrangement. The lamp lowers the shadows along the quilt. The round window holds the night. The beams above hold the roof. The quilt of many rooms rests in the center, joining the entry, the loom, the hearth, the garden, and the water into one's slow patchwork of quiet. The many-room quilt does not need to be opened farther. Its small scenes are quiet because they are folded, and the folded part is part of the comfort. The stream under the wall is far below now, yet its softness still seems to travel through the floor. In the open corner of the quilt, one tiny window square sits beside a stitched line of water. It does not become a picture to study for long. It only echoes the mill below, as if the whole route has been folded into cloth and made lighter. The stitched rooms can sleep inside. The larger room, one folded comfort resting inside another. A low trunk near the wall stands open under the sloped roof. Its lid is lined with plain cloth, and the hinges have been wrapped in small strips of leather so they do not complain when moved. Inside, winter coverlets lie in wide folded layers, each separated by muslin and cedar blocks. The top coverlet is cream wool with a border of brown and blue. Under it rests one made of heavier cloth, the kind that keeps warmth close during long, cold nights. Another has tiny knots at the corners where a backing was tied by hand. The knots make a soft dotted pattern that can be followed for a while, and then forgotten. Lavender sachets are tucked between the folds. Their scent is faint, dry, and old in the best way. Not a perfume, more like a memory of a sunny shelf, a garden basket, and linen carried in from air that was warmer than this attic. The trunk does not feel like storage alone. The trunk does not feel like storage alone. It feels like the mill, keeping promises to future cold evenings, without naming them or making them important. Warmth has been folded and kept. That is all. At the round window, moonlight lies thin on the sill. It touches the open trunk, the muslin, and the upper edge of the coverlet. The stream below is too far to hear clearly, but the water wheel sends a low steadiness through the boards. The attic holds winter, summer, garden, hearth, and stream in different folds. None of them needs to be chosen. The trunk may remain open while the room grows quieter around it. The trunk can stay open without making a request. Winter coverlets, muslin layers, cedar blocks, a ribbon left out over the drawer lip. All of it rests as if chosen for sleep. The wheel below keeps turning, but up here it is only a rounded hush. The winter coverlets look heavy, but their weight is a promise rather than a burden. They belong to cold rooms, late fires, and beds that need one more layer. In the trunk, that future warmth sleeps before it is needed. The lid remains lifted, and still the trunk feels closed enough for the night. Behind the cedar shelves, where the roof slopes almost to the floor, there is a little sleeping alcove. It is tucked away simply, the way a pocket is tucked into a coat. A low bed rests there, built into the wall. It has a mattress covered in cream linen, 2 pillows, and a folded quilt at the foot. A small shelf above the bed holds a lamp, a cup, a smooth stone, and a sprig of dried lavender tied with thread. The lamp is turned nearly as low as it can go. The alcove has one small window cut into the roof. Through it, only the sky can be seen. No road, no task, no distant roofline. Only a piece of deep blue night, and one pale star resting in the glass. The floor beside the bed is covered with a narrow rug. Its pattern is almost gone from use, but under the lamplight a few lines remain. A border, a small diamond, a stripe. At the head of the bed, the wall has been panelled in smooth wood. Warm to the eye, dark at the knots. This is not a room that insists anyone sleep. It simply makes rest easy to understand. Pillow, quilt, low lamp, warm wood, quiet sky. The arrangement is so simple that thought has almost nothing to hold. The water wheel is faint from here. The sound reaches the alcove, softened by attic boards and folded blankets. It is no longer wood and water, exactly. It is only a steady turning somewhere below, and something old and patient continuing its circle while the rest of the mill becomes still. The quilt at the foot of the bed is not opened yet. It waits in its fold. The lamp waits in its low circle. The alcove waits with no hurry at all. The alcove makes rest plain. A low bed, a lower lamp, a small roof window, a folded quilt. There is very little for thought to hold. Cedar and cotton stay close in the warm boards, and the mill narrows kindly around this simple place. The cup on the shelf is turned down, keeping its clean hollow to itself. The smooth stone beside it has no story that must be followed. These small things make the alcove less decorated than prepared, less arranged than ready. The night keeper does not ask the bed to promise sleep. The alcove simply makes room for it. The roof window is no larger than a tray. Its frame is painted a quiet green, worn at the lower edge, where it has been opened and closed over many seasons. Tonight it is closed, and the glass holds the sky like a dark blue square of cloth. One pale star rests in that square. It does not glitter strongly. It is simply present, a small light that seems to belong to the window rather than to the sky beyond it. Around it, the night is deep and plain. The shelf above the bed has only what it needs: a lamp with a low flame, a cup turned upside down on a saucer, a smooth stone. The lavender sprig tied with thread. The stone came from the stream, perhaps, or from the garden path. It is too simple to require knowing. Its surface is rounded and cool in the lamplight. The folded quilt at the foot of the bed has a cream top and a muted blue underside visible at the edge. It is folded in thirds. The fold nearest the pillow lifts slightly, making a soft shadow. The linen beneath it has been smoothed by hand, but not so perfectly that the bed looks untouched. By kindness. The alcove is the quietest part of the mill because it asks for the least. It does not need many objects. It does not need a view of the wheel, or the garden, or the shelves. The rest of the mill has already been gathered, and here it becomes simple. Low bed, low lamp, folded quilt, small sky. The star in the roof glass is enough. It does not brighten or fade in any dramatic way. It simply remains small and steady above the folded quilt. Woolsoft quiet gathers around the bed, and the rooms below feel farther away in a useful way. The glass is closed, so the star arrives without cold air. That small kindness matters. The window gives the sky, but keeps the room warm, and the folded quilt at the foot of the bed keeps its soft blue underside just visible. Below that small sky, the pillow and quilt keep their plain shapes in a circle of lamplight. From the alcove, the mill can be felt more than seen. The rooms below are like layers under a quilt. The hearth nook, the dye room, the wool baskets, the mending table, the window bench, the spools, the looms, the side entry, and outside them all, the stream moving past the wall. The sound of the water wheel has travelled through every layer. It has lost separate edges. It is no longer wooden paddles and falling water. It is only a slow turning held in the floor, a steady thought that does not need words. Aunt. The hearth below sends up a little warmth, not enough to notice as heat, only enough to keep the air from feeling empty. The cedar shelves hold their scent. The folded quilts hold the day they were aired. The wool baskets hold their pale softness. The garden holds its cool stones outside the wall, in the alcove. Yea, nothing has to be arranged around the body or the mind. The bed is low, The lamp is lower. The star is small. The quilt waits. The wood paneling at the head of the bed has knots like dark moons, and each knot rests in the grain without needing to become an image. This is the deepest quiet of the mill. Not silence, not darkness, not disappearance, but a gathering of known things into their simplest forms. Wheel, stream, lamp, cloth, wood, warmth. The words can loosen now. The rooms can remain without being named. The night can continue its slow work of folding everything inward. Here the details can begin to loosen. Wood, cloth, wheel, stream, warmth, the words, thin until they are almost textures. The old lamplight held in the mill's glass and shelves remains close enough, and the alcove keeps the rest without naming it again. The night keeper's presence is almost only a steadiness now. No guiding is needed in the alcove. The mill has already shown the path, and the path has become a few simple sensations. Low lamp, warm boards, folded cloth, and the wheel below. Nothing needs to be guided now. The mill has become familiar enough to continue by itself. After a long while, the attic begins to fade at its edges. The shelves are still visible, but the spaces between the stacks have deepened. The muslin-wrapped quilts have become pale shapes. The pillows, in their linen cases, are almost the same color as the wall. The round window at the far end holds a darker sky now. The pear branches beyond it move once and settle. Below the window, the low chest keeps the many-room quilt, folded, with one corner open. The open corner is still there, though the little stitches are harder to see. The trunk of winter coverlets remains open. Its muslin layers are quiet, and the cedar blocks between them make small square shadows. The ribbon in the drawer still curls over the lip. No one has tucked it back in. No one needs to. A calm place does not vanish when the light lowers. It becomes easier to keep. The mind no longer has to gather every detail. It knows the shelves are there. It knows the chest is there. It knows the quilt, the trunk, the window, and the alcove are where they were. The stair waits beyond handrail, the curtain. The warm handrail waits below. The rooms of the mill wait under the floor. Nothing is leaving. The route can turn back whenever it is ready, and the attic will stay folded under the roof, keeping its stored warmth without asking to be remembered perfectly. The attic does not need a clear edge anymore. Shelves, chest, trunk, window, curtain, they stay where they are, becoming easier to trust as they become harder to count. Hearthlight lies somewhere below the boards. A warmth remembered more than seen. The darker sky in the round window makes the attic feel more held, not more empty. Shapes have permission to lose their edges. A bundle may become a pale block. A pillow may become part of the wall, and nothing important is lost. This is the kindness of fading. The room stays present while attention is allowed to rest. The path turns gently back through the attic. The shelves remain as they were. The chest remains under the round window. The quilt of many rooms rests with one corner open, and the small ribbon still curls from the drawer. The stair receives each step quietly. The linen curtain at the bottom has not moved. When it parts, the hearth nook glows ahead with the same low embers, neither brighter nor dimmer in any way that asks to be noticed. The key shifts on its leather cord as we pass the hearth. For a moment, it reflects the ember light, a small warm oval, then settles against the dark cloth. Off. Again. It has opened what it came to open. Now it travels with us through rooms already softened by the night. The dye room is pale in moonlight. The garden door is closed. The mending table holds its 3 squares. The window bench listens to the wheel. The wool baskets keep their rounded shapes in the lamplight. Each place is the same, but quieter, because it has been seen. A calm place changes in this small way. It does not reveal anything startling. It does not reveal anything startling. It does not become larger. It simply becomes familiar enough that the mind no longer needs to reach for it. The shelf is where it was. The bench is where it was. The wheel turns where it turned before. We pass the quilt room, and the stacks seem deeper in shadow. We pass the spools, and their colors have softened into one warm dusk. We pass the looms resting under their cloths. Nothing has been lost behind us. Nothing ahead asks us to hurry. The mill folds the root back on itself, like cloth, brought corner to corner, edge to edge, until the whole night lies smoother from anyone. Until the whole night lies smoother in the hands. The return is softer because nothing has to be found. Every room has already offered its shape, and each shape can now pass by with less detail. The stream under the wall returns to the ear first, low and familiar, as the side entry draws nearer. Passing the rooms again is like touching the folded edge of each one. Dye room, hearth, bench, baskets, shelves, looms. The names are enough, and even the names begin to soften. The key gives one low glint and then keeps quiet. Even the familiar floorboards seem to speak more softly on the way back down. On the return, the rooms do not need full attention. The weaving room can be remembered by the shape of the covered looms. The spool shelves can be remembered by roundness and color. The quilt room can be remembered by cedar. The wool basket room can be remembered by pale mounds under linen light. The window bench holds the wheel close, and the mending table holds its drawer open just a finger width. The hearth nook keeps the mug covered and the biscuit on its plate. The dye room keeps its bowls upside down. The garden stays behind its little pane, cool and green in the dark. Every place has become a simple sign of comfort. Bench, shelf, quilt, wool, hearth, stone, lamp, stream. The words no longer need to be joined into a root, though the root is still there. The mill itself seems to breathe through the spaces between rooms. Warm air moves along the passage without becoming a draft. The floorboards answer lightly and then are quiet. The wheel outside keeps turning and the stream receives what falls from it. This return is not a departure. It is a soft folding back toward the place where the night began. The side entry waits ahead with its bench and shawls. But it is not an ending that asks to be reached. It is only another familiar room, one more square in the same quiet quilt. Names fall away in a kind order. Bench, shelf, quilt, wool, hearth, stone, lamp, stream. The words are not steps now, only soft markers in the dark. The wheel continues its even circle, and the remembered rooms rest around it. The route still exists, but it no longer needs to be walked in full. It can be held the way a quilt is held when folded. All its squares still present, all its seams intact, but gathered into one useful weight. The side entry is not far now, but there is no need to reach it quickly. The side entry waits as gently as before. The bench stands under the shawls. The slippers remain paired beneath it. Little lamp on the shelf still lights the spools of oat, smoke blue, and warm milk thread. The side door is closed, and the lock is quiet. Through the wall, the stream goes, unmoving. Through the floor, the mill keeps a little of the hearth. The air at the threshold is cooler than the rooms behind us, yet still held by cedar and wool. A folded quilt has been placed on the bench. Perhaps it was always there, and only now becomes easy to notice. It is small enough for a lap, large enough to give weight. Its top is pieced from plain cloth. Green, cream, brown, blue. Its back is soft flannel. Its edges are stitched by hand, close and careful. The night keeper's hand rests near the little door peg. The key is lifted from the leather cord just enough to touch the lock. Again, not to open outward, only to settle the door into its night position. The turn is soft. The latch sits home. The key returns to the cord. Outside, the lantern by the door glows through the small pane. It makes the entry feel like a room inside a lantern, warm at the center, dim at the edges. The mill has given the root and taken nothing in return. It has shown its looms, shelves, baskets, bench, hearth, garden, stair, attic, and alcove. Now it gathers every room inward. The door rests. The shawls hang. The quilt on the bench waits in case the night asks for one more layer. The entry feels smaller after the long route, and that smallness is welcome. The lamp, the bench, the quilt, the key, the door. Everything has gathered close again. Cedar and folded cotton remain in the air, warm enough to make the threshold gentle. The small quilt on the bench seems more visible now because the rooms behind it have grown dim. Its green, cream, brown, and blue pieces do not ask to be unfolded. They simply offer one final layer of warmth at the threshold. The latch, the peg, and the shelf all wait within the same small circle of lamplight. The little peg beside the side door is smooth from years of holding small, useful things. It is not high on the wall. It is just above the latch, where a hand can find it without looking. The key rests there now, on its worn leather cord, close to the door it opened. The metal catches one dim thread of lantern light, and then becomes dull again. It does not gleam like treasure. It is only a key, softened by use, trusted because it belongs to a place that is already calm. The leather cord hangs in a long loop against the green paint. Near the bottom of the loop, the cord twists once, making a shadow like a loose stitch. The peg holds the key, the cord, the small weight of the evening, and nothing more. On the bench below, the small quilt remains folded. The shawls above do not move. The slippers in their basket are as they were. The lamp on the shelf has lowered slightly, or perhaps the entry has grown used to its light. The spools beside it are only soft round shapes now. The side door is warm on the inside and cool on the outside. Between those two temperatures, the mill rests. The lock has settled. The threshold mat holds its muted colors. The rooms behind the entry are still present, but farther away, as if they have been folded into the wall. A key on a peg, a lamp on a shelf, a quilt on a bench. The whole night can become this simple, without losing anything it has carried. The key can rest now. It has done its simple work, and the peg receives it without ceremony. The wool basket, quiet. The lamplight, the shawls, the folded quilt on the bench, all come together in one low room, and the night becomes easier to leave unmeasured. The green paint behind the cord is worn where years have made the same small gesture, hanging the key. There is not an ending so much as a return to order. The side door keeps its place between cool night and warm mill. The cord hangs still, and the key becomes part of the door, the way a stitch belongs to cloth. The rooms behind the entry settle one by one into a deeper quiet. The weaving room gathers around the covered looms. The spool shelves soften around their small circles of color. The quilt shelves rest with cedar and folded cotton. The wool basket room holds its pale mounds. The window bench stays beside the wheel. The hearth nook keeps its embers. The dye room keeps its moonlit bowls. The garden keeps the pear tree. The stair waits under its handrail. The attic rests under the sloped roof, and the alcove rests under its small piece of sky. The water wheel keeps turning, but even that turning seems to have become part of stillness. It lifts water because water is there. It lets water fall because falling is easy. It goes on in a circle that asks for no counting, no watching, and no remembering. The stream carries the amber windows in broken lines. It carries the moon between stones. It carries a few leaves under the wall and away into the dark. Every movement is slow enough to become background. Every background is soft enough to become rest. On the bench, the small quilt holds its folded weight. On the shelf, the lamp holds its low flame. On the peg, the shawls hold their warmth. Nothing needs choosing now. The story can thin out at the edges. The mill can remain without being followed. The wheel can turn without needing to be named again. The hearthlight can stay where it is, under the roof, behind the windows, along the floorboards, inside the quiet, asked the folded quilts, and the quiet space between one breath and the next. The mill does not need to be followed any farther. Its rooms know their places in the dark, and the wheel knows its circle. Old glass keeps the last lamp glow close to the side door, where the story can grow thinner without losing its warmth. The amber windows outside still hold their broken reflections on the stream, though no one needs to stand in the lane and watch them. Inside, the rooms keep their lamps low. The night keeper lets the mill finish the story in its own quiet. Room by room, the mill lowers itself into rest without needing any room to disappear. The lantern by the side door is lowered a little more. Its flame becomes a bead of amber. Inside, clouded glass. The entry does not darken suddenly. It simply grows softer, the way a room does when the last necessary light has been left in place. The bench, the quilt, the slippers, the shawls, and the shelf are still visible. The rest of the mill is mostly shadow now, friendly shadow, full of known shapes. The looms are not far. The hearth is not far. The attic is folded above. The garden is folded behind. The stream is folded around the side of the building. The low lantern makes one small circle on the floor. Inside that circle, the grain of the boards can still be seen. Lines, knots, small pale scratches. A place where one board was repaired long ago with a darker piece of wood. The repair is smooth under the light. It belongs completely. This is the hour when objects stop asking to be noticed. The spools become roundness. The shawls become warmth. The door becomes a boundary of comfort. The quilt becomes weight and softness. The stream becomes a murmur. The wheel becomes a circle. There is no next room to enter. There is no other room asking from anyone. There is no other room asking attention. There is only the mill resting around the rooms already given, and the night resting around the mill. The lantern stays low. The door stays warm. The key rests on the little peg by the side door. I will be here tomorrow night. Sleep well. The Hearthlight Quilt mill keeps its amber windows beside the stream. The water wheel turns once more in the dark, and then again, softly enough that the turning and the quiet become the same. The mill has nowhere else to go tonight. It simply keeps its warmth, its folded cloth, and its low turning water.